Some of the biggest companies in America are spending billions of dollars to solve a very specific problem. The problem isn't getting people to shop. Americans already love shopping. The problem is getting people to spend more than they originally planned. And over the last few years, a simple little button has become one of the most powerful tools ever created for doing exactly that. Millions of people use it every month. Most don't think of it as debt. Many believe it's actually helping them manage their money. But if that's true, why are retailers so eager to put it in front of you? Why are investors pouring billions into the industry? And why has its growth been so explosive? To answer those questions, we need to understand what really happens the moment you click Buy Now, Pay Later. At first glance, Buy Now, Pay Later doesn't seem revolutionary. After all, people have been borrowing money for centuries. Credit cards already exist. Loans already exist. So why did this model spread so quickly? Why did retailers rush to add it to their checkout pages? The answer has less to do with money and more to do with human behavior. Because when researchers study spending, they consistently find that the pain of paying influences the decisions we make. Handing over $500 feels very different from handing over $125 today and worrying about the rest later. The amount may be identical. The product may be identical. But the experience feels completely different. And that difference turns out to be far more powerful than most people realize. In fact, if you look at the way Buy Now, Pay Later is marketed, you'll notice something interesting. The focus is rarely on the total price of the product. Instead, the attention is often directed toward the smaller payment. A $400 purchase becomes just $100 today. A $1,000 purchase becomes only $250 now. The product hasn't become cheaper. The customer's income hasn't increased. Yet the purchase suddenly feels more manageable. And that's important because businesses understand a simple truth about consumer behavior. The easier a purchase feels, the more likely it is to happen. That's one reason retailers have embraced Buy Now, Pay Later so enthusiastically. For many businesses, it's not just another payment option. It's a sales tool. And that's where things start to get really interesting. Because if Buy Now, Pay Later were simply another way to pay, retailers wouldn't be treating it like such a big deal. Yet across the industry, businesses have spent years integrating it into checkout pages, redesigning purchase flows around it, and making it as visible as possible. Why? Because when a tool consistently helps turn browsers into buyers, companies pay attention. When it helps customers feel more comfortable making larger purchases, companies pay even more attention. In other words, Buy Now, Pay Later isn't valuable because it changes the product. It's valuable because it changes the decision-making process. And once you understand that distinction, a much bigger question begins to emerge. If this system is influencing how people make spending decisions, how exactly is it doing that? To answer that, we need to talk about a concept that psychologists and behavioral economists have studied for decades. The concept is surprisingly simple. Spending money doesn't just affect our bank accounts. It affects our emotions. Every purchase comes with a certain amount of psychological discomfort. A moment where our brain weighs the value of what we're getting against the money we're giving up. Researchers sometimes refer to this as the pain of paying. And while the name may sound dramatic, the idea is easy to understand. Most people feel more hesitation when handing over $500 all at once than when that same amount is divided into smaller pieces. Logically, the math is identical. But psychologically, the experience is very different. Think about it this way. Imagine someone offers you two options for the exact same purchase. In the first option, you pay the full amount today. In the second, the cost is divided into several smaller payments spread out over time. For many people, the second option immediately feels easier. Not because the product became more affordable, not because their financial situation improved, but because the immediate sacrifice feels smaller. And that's where buy now, pay later begins to reveal its true power. It doesn't necessarily change the economics of a purchase. It changes the way the purchase feels in the moment. And as it turns out, feelings often play a much bigger role in spending decisions than most of us would like to admit. And this isn't just a theory. The reason retailers continue embracing buy now, pay later is because the results can be significant. When consumers focus on smaller installment payments rather than the total purchase price, they're often more willing to complete transactions and consider higher-priced products. From a business perspective, that's incredibly valuable. The easier a purchase feels, the more likely it is to happen. And when millions of consumers are making purchasing decisions this way, even small changes in behavior can translate into enormous amounts of money. And that might not sound like a big deal at first. After all, what's wrong with making a purchase feel a little easier? If someone can comfortably afford the payments, where's the problem? The answer is that buy now, pay later doesn't just change how we feel about one purchase. It can change how we evaluate multiple purchases. When every item is broken into smaller payments, something interesting begins to happen. The individual decisions start to feel disconnected from the bigger financial picture. A pair of shoes becomes $25 today. A new gadget becomes $40 today. A piece of furniture becomes $60 today. Each decision may seem reasonable on its own, but money isn't spent one decision at a time. It's spent through the combined effect of all our decisions. This is where the real challenge begins. Because most people don't wake up one morning and decide to take on more financial obligations than they can handle. Instead, those obligations tend to accumulate gradually. One payment here, another payment there, then another. Each one feels manageable when viewed in isolation. But over time, those isolated commitments begin to overlap. And when they do, the question is no longer whether a single purchase was affordable. The question becomes whether all of them are affordable at the same time. That's a very different calculation. And it's one that many consumers never fully make when they're focused on the small payment sitting in front of them. And that's what makes buy now pay later fundamentally different from the way many people think about traditional borrowing. When someone takes out a large loan, the obligation feels obvious. It's difficult to ignore. But smaller obligations have a way of fading into the background. They don't demand the same attention. They don't always feel significant on their own. Yet your bank account doesn't care whether a payment feels small or large. It only cares that the payment exists. And as more obligations accumulate, a growing portion of future income becomes spoken for before it even arrives. Not because of one reckless decision, but because of many seemingly harmless ones. Imagine receiving your paycheck and discovering that part of it already belongs to purchases you made weeks ago. Not necessities you're using today. Not emergencies you couldn't avoid. But decisions that felt insignificant in the moment because the immediate cost appeared so small. This is where timing becomes important. Buy now, pay later allows consumers to enjoy the benefit of a purchase immediately while pushing some of the financial consequences into the future. And while that may sound convenient, it also creates a dangerous separation between the moment of consumption and the moment of payment. You get the reward now. The cost arrives later. And human beings have never been particularly good at treating those two moments as if they're connected. In fact, this tendency is so common that psychologists have a name for it. Human beings naturally place a higher value on rewards that are available right now than rewards that arrive in the future. We know saving money is important. We know avoiding unnecessary debt is wise. We know delayed gratification often leads to better outcomes. Yet time and time again, people choose the immediate reward. Not because they're irrational, but because that's how the human brain evolved. The future feels distant. The present feels real. And by now, pay later fits perfectly into that reality. It takes a future cost and quietly moves it into the background while keeping the immediate reward front and center. To be clear, this doesn't mean everyone who uses buy now, pay later is making a mistake. Many people use it responsibly and never encounter serious problems. That's part of what makes this topic so interesting. The danger isn't that buy now, pay later automatically leads to financial trouble. The danger is that it can make financial decisions feel safer than they actually are. And when a financial product changes perception without changing reality, mistakes become much easier to make. Because whether a payment feels small or large, whether it's due today or next month, the underlying math never changes. The money still has to come from somewhere. Consider a simple example. Let's say someone uses buy now, pay later to purchase a new pair of shoes. The payments seem small, so it doesn't feel like a major commitment. A week later, they use it again for a new phone accessory. Later that month, maybe it's a piece of furniture, a kitchen appliance, or a few holiday gifts. None of these decisions seem extreme. In fact, each one may appear perfectly reasonable when viewed on its own. But that's precisely what makes the situation so deceptive. The consumer isn't comparing one purchase against their income. They're comparing one payment against their income. And those are two very different things. By the time the next paycheck arrives, several payment schedules may already be running at the same time. One charge is due this week. Another is due next week. A third arrives the week after that. Suddenly, money that hasn't even been earned yet already has a destination. And this is where many consumers encounter a problem they never anticipated. The stress doesn't come from any single purchase. It comes from the accumulation of commitments. The financial pressure isn't created in one moment. It's built gradually, one seemingly harmless decision at a time. And because the process happens so slowly, people often don't recognize what's happening until their flexibility has already started to disappear. But here's the interesting part. The biggest problem with buy now pay later may not be buy now pay later itself. After all, dividing a payment into installments doesn't magically create financial trouble. If someone has the income, the discipline, and a clear understanding of their obligations, the system can function exactly as intended. The real issue emerges when convenience starts replacing careful decision-making. Because the easier a purchase feels, the less likely we are to scrutinize it. The less painful a payment feels, the less attention we tend to give it. And over time, that shift in behavior can have consequences that extend far beyond a single transaction. That's why the story of buy now pay later isn't really a story about technology, apps, or payment plans. It's a story about human behavior. It's a story about how small changes in the way choices are presented can influence the decisions millions of people make every day. The products didn't change. The prices didn't change. Human psychology didn't change. What changed was the way those elements were combined. And in many ways, that's what makes buy now pay later so effective. It doesn't force anyone to spend money. It simply makes spending feel easier. Sometimes much easier. So the next time you see that familiar button at checkout, take a moment and ask yourself a simple question. Am I evaluating the full purchase or just the payment in front of me? Because that distinction can make all the difference. Buy now, pay later doesn't change the true cost of what you're buying. It changes how that cost is experienced. And once you understand that, You can make the decision with your eyes open rather than relying on the feeling the payment option was designed to create. In the end, financial freedom isn't determined by how easy it is to buy something today. It's determined by how much control you still have over your money tomorrow. If you found this valuable, subscribe for more videos that help you think differently about money.